The market is never wrong. If something is inflated in value, it's because right now people are finding value in it. And if it deflates in value later on, that value they don't see in it anymore. If you think the market is wrong, you're just trying to justify why you're not happy with it. Welcome to the Tom Storey Show with Steve Karrasch and Tom Storey, where we discuss everything real estate or whatever else is on our minds. Alrighty, and I have to write down the start time so I can edit later.
Good to go?
Did you already press start?
I'm recording, yep. All right.
Behind the lens.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Tom Storey Show. I appreciate you being here. This episode is brought to you by our channel sponsor, Realty Ninja, and you'll learn more about them later in the show. If you're watching us on YouTube and you have not already, please make sure to like this video and subscribe. Steve, we passed 4,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is a milestone for us. So obviously 5,000 is the next one. Are we going to do some type of giveaway at 5,000 maybe? Does that sound about right?
Probably not, but if you look behind me, I'm still well behind you in the main channel stuff. So,
okay,
you know, well,
I've been having more fun on this channel anyways these days.
It has been a lot of fun.
It has been a lot of fun. If you're listening on the audio platforms, I hope you're having a wonderful day and have a nice drive or whatever you're doing. Maybe you're walking your dog. Today's guest is someone who is long overdue to being on the show, who has propelled my career in real estate. Truthfully, probably more than anybody else from the very beginning, someone that believed in me. Samantha Hewit has joined the show from Royal LePage Signature. She is the Director of Realtor Development. But Sam, you basically just do everything. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Steve, for having me. Yes, I typically tell people I oversee the sales team here at Royal LePage Signature. Thank you for that nice compliment. You and I have known each other a long time. You were brand new when you started here. Is that coming up on 10 years? Has it been 10 years yet?
It's been 9 now.
Been 9.
Yeah. Do you remember? Yeah. So like, I think I was selling my parents' house and I was like, I don't know what to do. We have 3 offers. And you're like, okay. And this was, Steve, when you do everything in person still. Mm-hmm. And you ran me through the whole thing. Like, okay, you go into this room to have them present. And then the ones that you aren't going to take, you take those people into that room to tell them so it doesn't cause a commotion. So they leave through that door. And it was like this whole thing.
Yeah. The best part about that whole story is that you didn't know because you were new, but one of the agents that was representing the buyers was a very, I think you knew how seasoned she was, but see, she was like 30 years in the top 1% club. And I took one look at little Tom Storey and I was like, yeah, I can't leave. I'm going to be here till 9 o'clock. I can't. She's going to eat him for dinner.
You know what? Those days were fun when you would go in and you'd sit across the table from the other agent and the sellers and say, this is my offer. Here's a little bit about my clients. We brought the deposit check with us today. My clients are sitting out in the parking lot. They're ready to sign. This was before electronic signatures. This was kind of the way it was done forever, right? And until the last 7 years, maybe, I think it changed.
Art is completely lost. And what we love to do, I'd love to do this part, whether or not it was in the lobby of the condo or if it was just outside in the lobby of our office here, I would take those 3 or 4 agents and I would sit them in the same room and let them look at each other for 20, 30 minutes first. And then I would tell my clients that's what we're doing. And then they would have the same reaction you guys just had. And then, somebody wants to win. And then you do watch who's new and who's crumbling and who's going to do well. Who's going to let me just jump in. Just remind me of a random story. Once I got caught in an elevator with 15 realtors because there was too many of us in there. And the biggest top producer in the whole entire area was the first one to start to crack. And I have used that in every listing presentation.
Sam, does that happen at all? Is anyone still doing stuff in person at the office?
Yeah. You know what? Before in pre-show, when the 3 of us were just chatting, we were just talking about this whole concept of, virtual versus in person and how it impacts, realtors and the realtor space. I know that's not our topic of conversation today, but, I think it for me anyways, I think when you're dealing with the largest transaction someone's going to go through, I do think there is still a mentality of wanting to, see, feel, touch, hold. Like, I do think there is still value there. And I'm not negating electronic signatures and the convenience it provides us and all those things. I'm not taking that away, from a work ethic perspective from what we do, but I really do think that there are a vast number of our consumers that do want a face-to-face experience. And so I think at the very least, it's incumbent on all of us, not just, realtors, but on consumers listening to the show. If you are the kind of person that wants an in-person experience, that is something you should advocate for. When I go to my doctor now, they ask me, we'll do virtual if you want. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, that's totally fine virtual. But sometimes I say, no, I'd like to come and I want to be able to see you. So I think it's important in this new post-COVID world for us to advocate whether we want an in-person experience or whether we're okay with virtual.
One thing I couldn't believe, and we've talked about before, is Steve was telling me when Steve gets offers, he doesn't even get a call before. They just show up in his inbox in his market. Like, that's not really a Toronto thing. We connect with each other beforehand. Like, I can't, Steve, you want to share like what that's been like?
There's no preamble? There's no conversation first?
Often, I would say more than 50% of the time, there is not even a phone call first. There will be, now I'll track all my showings. So I'll know who's been in and when, and the lockbox company sends us reports on who accessed the property and when and all that stuff. But generally speaking, most of my offers now come unannounced to my email. So much so that if they go to my junk mail, I've missed offers. Like they've gone to spam and somebody's like, what's going on with my offer? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I check my spam and there it is from 4 days ago, by the way. It also expired 3 days ago. And I'm just like, it has become very much, but I think that is a result of the overwhelming market or the industry not properly bringing people up, because there are a lot of brokerages now that don't properly support. And my feeling is that support also benefits from being in person, right? Like I know a bunch of companies are starting to bring people back to the office. And the news, actually, I saw an article on it last night that said, it was on the radio. For some reason, I was listening to the radio. Can you believe that? And there was they were saying, it's just a power grab. Bring people back to the office, just a power grab. Or maybe people just like to be around other people and they want to get more productive work done. And now I'm experiencing that because I just hired here on the team. I got a fresh person who's new to the industry, and
you'll wipe that smile right off their face.
He's still smiling. We're going to fix that. But I can't believe, I couldn't imagine not seeing him 4 or 5 times a week, the experience that he would have if he were at a different brokerage where they didn't have those meetings or interactions. Because how do you train those people? I mean, you can do webinars, I guess, but is that going to bring you into the actual fold?
Yeah, this is where I think brand is so critical, right? I mean, the two of you are top agents and you've got your own personal brands that are well known in your marketplaces. But I think when you're kind of working through the business, having a quote unquote brand behind you, a brokerage brand, it doesn't hurt you for you guys at your level. It doesn't hurt, Tom coming in from Royal LePage, and Steve, it doesn't hurt for you coming in from Macdonald Realty. But if I'm a new agent, even more so, if I've only been in the business 4 or 5 years and I'm going to meet a consumer, I personally believe, and I've heard it from consumers, they want to know, well, who's behind you? Like, what is that brand behind you? And I think that is where it makes a bigger difference for people. And now, of course, with TRESA, consumers are hearing a lot about TRESA and the new, in Ontario anyway, Steve, the new rules and regulations around transparency and open offers. I think that is going to become even more of a conversation around brand, because consumers are going to want to know, well, who is representing me and who is behind the person I'm talking to? And I think that is going to make more of a difference to people as we go through the next couple of years and see what happens to our industry and the competition levels and the number of realtors in the business. So from a consumer perspective, I think it's really important to understand not just the agent or the realtor that you're meeting with, but also the brand behind them. I mean, it isn't insignificant in my opinion.
But what can we do? Hang on, Todd.
Okay,
What can we do? Like, how do we make this an important thing to the consumer? Because I know we run it not long ago on the podcast channel. We asked about brand. And then I just ran a poll on my main channel that asked about, do you care if your agent produces and runs a sustainable business. And I just basically ranked what I consider to be the 5 kind of categories, all the way from I just want the cheapest price to I want a top producer. But the general public doesn't seem to really care until they care, until something goes wrong. So what can we do from your point of view to actually make it something that the general public should consider as something important?
I think it comes down to education, and I think it comes down to performance of, the person you're speaking to. So in your case, both of you, coming down to your performance and what you are able to deliver to people. But I think it also comes down to just in your presentations and your marketing, talking about the brokerage behind you and who they are and the security and the legacy they may have. My friend Ron Tite always says to me, consumers want, they want a small feel with a big name behind it. They want to go to a really cool restaurant, but they want to know when they get there, the food's going to be amazing because the chef's a pro. Nobody wants to be sold to, but they want to know that their interests are safe. And so, Steve, I think it comes down to education and on explaining to consumers, again, for the two of you, when you're on listing presentations, the competitors that you're up against, and the brands that they work for. And if there's a brand that maybe is a startup or it's newer, that is something I think to be, aware of. Obviously, in Ontario, and I know it's the same thing, out in Alberta, we're all governed by a governing body. The consumer is protected by the regulator who, oversees real estate and real estate agents and brokerages. And there are, insurance programs around to deposit money and things of that nature, but it's not foolproof. And it's not a complete safe mechanism against it. I mean, the insurance programs only cover you to a certain amount. And after that, the consumers are on their own. And to your point, it's only a problem till it's a problem. But I think it comes down to educating consumers, using stories, again, allowing them to understand that there is security in brokerage brands. And I know that wasn't necessarily our topic today, but I do think it does matter, especially as home prices continue to increase, deposits get larger. Litigious situations don't become less as purchase prices increase. So I think it's education.
I've been thinking even like the small things, like when I talk about to our clients who are brokerages, something I'll actually bring up is like, if someone decides they want to call the office, it doesn't go to some random person. Like there's 2 real people that are sitting there that are picking up the phone. They know about the listing. They know the listing agent because they see them in the office every single day. And all these things I just think add up. Like I do think it really does make a difference. And Sam, one of the things I talked about yesterday is I've got this new kind of thing I'm sharing with my team where I've become obsessed with this idea that if you are really good at what you do, you have the understanding and the knowledge and the market dynamics to help people. And what Taylor Hack would say is like save them from 3-star experiences. Like if you are good at what you do, I actually think you are doing your community and the market that you work in a disservice by not being good at marketing. Because if I'd rather save them from a bad experience because I know, and this isn't like pumping my thing, like I think we're good, but there's lots of good people. I'd rather save them from a crappy experience with someone that doesn't know what they're doing by me being better at marketing so they know to call me. And that's not like I'm just me making more money type of thing. I'd rather they call Steve in his market than somebody else. But I think there's this gap between like, listen, this, Sam, there's a lot of agents even within Royal LePage Signature that probably on a market understanding level and a client experience level are really, really good at what they do. And some produce a lot, but some don't produce. So it's not just, are you good? It's, do people know who you are to even call you to find out if you're good?
Those are such different skill sets, right? Yeah. I mean, the skill set of being a salesperson is very different than the skill set at being good with numbers and explaining the market. And I see it all the time. I mean, I say it all the time in what I do when I'm speaking to my team. Like, and Tom, you've heard me say it. Like, you can be, I can hand you a client and you can be amazing with the client. You can know exactly how to explain the charts and the reports and the graphs and take them through the whole transaction, explain the process, and do a wonderful job and close them. But if you can't find the client, none of the rest of it really matters. And so they're just different skill sets. That's all it is.
And then the path in which a lot of newer agents are trying to go down to find clients is by whether it's covering really negative stuff to get people to show up to then try to flip them into clients, or the TikTok stuff, which me and Steve have stayed away from. But there's nothing wrong with it if it's good information. It's just, I don't really know what other options they have. Cause like when you're brand new and you have no money, you can't afford traditional marketing. So really the only option you have is Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, maybe.
Yes. I say this all the time though, when I'm coaching the sales team, is I say buyers and sellers, many of whom are listening to your show right now, don't want to see you on your social channels making fun of them. You know, like I love the broke agent and I love the content they put out as a realtor. Sometimes I think it's so in the moment, right? Like the Taylor Swift starts dating Travis Kelce and the broke agent has that meme out like same day. Like they're so good at that. But if I'm a consumer, I don't really know if I want to see my realtor making fun of the fact that it takes me 50 homes to find the one I want. And so I think realtors have to be really aware of the way that they're discussing their marketing. And even, last year, of course, in 23, the hardest market that realtors have had, from a volume perspective, from a transaction perspective. And, I said to a lot of our team, like, be very careful when you're meeting with consumers. You're not saying how bad the market is because of the number of deals that are happening. You have to focus on what matters to them. They care about the length of time properties are taking to sell. They care about interest rates. They care about average price. We care about how many deals are done, and they care about inventory levels, but it's a bit of a different conversation.
Yeah.
And so I think I really, again, like implore, agents to really be thinking about the message they're delivering to the consumer and what consumers want to hear, because consumers want to know, how is the market and what is happening and what is your opinion and when should I be buying or selling? That's what they're looking for.
And as a consumer, like if I wasn't doing this and I was just looking at all the things happening in the Toronto real estate market, the Surrey real estate market, and just like seeing it from afar, it's so confusing. There is so many numbers. There are so many headlines. This week, the market's picking up. This week, things are dropping off. This week, a house gets 85 offers. This week, condo can't even get a showing, right? So how can we just package it better for them? Or is there's just too much of it. It's hard to then siphon it down. Because literally just before we started recording this, we sold these clients condo May of last year. So we perfectly timed it by mistake and we got out at a really good price. And they actually they just rented for 6 months and then they extended it and they're now on month to month. They're like, hey, we want to buy, we want to get back in now. And they actually I don't know if it was on purpose, but timed it great. Like, okay, how's the market? Well, I'm like, well, what are you buying? This episode of the Tom Storey Show is brought to you by Realty Ninja. Hey, real estate agents, I bet you didn't get into the real estate industry to try to become a web developer. Realty Ninja will help you build a beautiful website for your business without becoming all techie, because me and Steve are certainly not techie. They'll set up your entire site for you. They'll migrate the content from your current site, and they'll take care of all the back end, switching the domains, all the things that you don't want to do, they'll take care of for you. Their team of in-house designers will make your new site match your current brand and help you stand out from your competitors. Best of all, Realty Ninja offers a free unlimited trial that lets you build out your website, and they do not charge you until you're ready to launch. That's right, they're so confident in their product and that you're gonna love the website that you build with them. They will not charge you until it's ready to launch. They don't even take your credit card details. Listeners of the Tom Storey Show will not only get an unlimited trial before you launch, but if you go to realtyninja.com/Tom, you will get 20% off your first year after you launch. A beautiful, functional, and professional website is absolutely a must in today's real estate landscape, and Realty Ninja delivers. So go to realtyninja.com/Tom for 20% off your first year. That's realtyninja.com/Tom. And now back to the podcast.
Yes.
And like every move-up buyer, they want a semi-detached house in one of the 4 or 5 good neighborhoods in the east or west of the downtown core. I said, well, how's the market? How's the market for you? Well, yeah, Beaches, Riverdale, Roncy, Junction, like it's that. Yep. Well, the market for you is there's like less than 2 months of inventory. 70% of these listings are still doing offer dates, and it's competitive again.
But if you want to go back into your old condo, do I got a deal for you?
Right. It's all over the place.
If we want to just reverse that whole situation, yes, we need to see. And this is where, again, Tom, back to your original question. When we're trying to help consumers, be educated, we're trying to help realtors educate consumers. It's such an individual conversation, because the reverse of that situation, Steve, is completely true. We need to find sellers in semi-detached properties in one of those 5 neighborhoods and get them to downsize into a condo. And they're the ones that are going to win in this market right now, right? There are different times where the strategy for buying and selling is going to be different depending on where the market is. And if you were, a downsizer, there were points in the market over the last 5 years that you would have crushed it. And if you were an upsizer last year, it really would have been your moment, or even, the first part of this year as we roll through February. But, I think, again, from a marketing and an understanding perspective from a consumer, this is where I think the value of a realtor is so important. And I'm not, tooting our own horn and saying how great we are, but I do think that there is value in working with a professional that spends hours a week studying the market and understanding these nuances to be able to say, well, based on your situation, this is what I think makes the most sense because of this number, and this number. And the great realtors that I know, they study. Like, even, before I came on with you guys, I've read them 100 times. I'm like, let me just make sure. Okay, great. Okay, yeah. Just so that I'm really clear on having an intelligent conversation with you today. And I think that's what, consumers really need to look for. Is it's not just being able to say, this is what happened. Anyone can look at the thing and say, well, this is what happened in December. Here are the numbers for you. It's working with a professional that can say, based on those numbers and based on your situation, this would be my advice and my guidance for you and your family. That is, I think, where all of the value is that we provide as realtors. It's not really in interpreting, it's synthesizing.
I think, as nerdy as it sounds, I like the what Chris Sledham said years ago, which was like, have a few graphs like saved as screenshots on your phone, like PDFs, and just when someone asks how's the market, pull out the graph for their situation and tell them what's going on. Because like, if you just share average price, median price, benchmark price with no context, it's just not helpful. It's confusing.
It doesn't make sense. I mean, I've shared this story so many times. Every time I go to my hairdresser, wonderful place to go get your hair done. But every time I'm there, they of course ask me, how's the market? And then she'll say, I heard the prices were down 12%. And I'm like, no, that was number of sales. She's like, no, I checked. I'm like, every single time she gets the numbers reversed. She reverses the price number with the number of sales number. And it is confusing because when you're listening to the media, they typically report on certain numbers, which matter. But when I'm looking at what's happening, I often want to see not necessarily January over January. That matters. And I want to know from a historic and a context perspective. But I also want to know January over December and December over November. And I want to kind of see, like, trend wise, what are we looking at? And I want to look at those 5 neighborhoods you just referenced. I want to look at that data for those pockets to see what's happening there. And it's really quite nuanced in a city of our size. And Steve, I know in your market too. And I think that's where, consumers, when they're looking for a professional to look to hire, to get guidance from, it's really a deep understanding of being able to overlay the numbers based on the person's situation that they're speaking to.
Let's just quickly acknowledge the silliness that happened, I guess, a week ago now with that one house that got all the media headlines for 85 offers. So we briefly talked about this, me and Steve, in a bonus episode that came out midway through the week. I'd like just your opinion on. I looked up the listing agent. I know him. I've met him. He's a super nice guy.
Yeah.
Probably did a good job. Probably a seller's very happy with him, right? Like, because that's where the contract was. But everyone else, even kind of like our industry, is kind of shitting on him online, which we're not supposed to do, by the way. What was your opinion on that?
It's not a good look.
It's not a good look. What's your opinion on just that overall situation?
Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts. The first thought, I agree with you. I think it's a very poor look to shit on anyone in our business, because number one, we're not privy to those conversations that agent is having with their clients. We have no idea the context of that situation. We have no idea the seller's situation, why they have to sell now, what their motivation was. We have no idea. And so I think first and foremost, just as a realtor population, as an industry, we owe ourselves a little more grace and space than we might give. And that's something I believe in that I won't soapbox you guys on, but I really do believe that we could all collectively do a little bit of a better job at being kind to one another. This business has a really bit of a dark underside sometimes, and situations like this, you kind of see it come out a little bit. So I think that's number one. Number two, I think it's important for consumers know this because they see this transaction differently than we do. But I think it's important for realtors to remember and consumers to remember that when a seller hires a brokerage and an agent to do a job and sell their home for them, they would like that person to do it as fast as possible for the most amount of money with the least amount of stress. And I'm not sure if we asked that seller that sold the property, if they might say, yeah, I got exactly what I wanted. So I think if we want to be very black and white about it, the seller, for whatever reason, needed to sell their property. I'm sure they wanted the transaction with the most amount of money, the least amount of stress, and the shortest amount of time. And they hired a realtor who delivered that to them. Now, if you're on the buy side and you're like, yeah, but Sam, like so much under Bob, I get it. I completely understand if you're one of those 84 people going home without a house. Yeah, it's not a great feeling for you. And I appreciate that. But the aspect of you're owed something different, I think is a little tone deaf because the seller hired someone to do a job for them and that job was done. And I think it was done quite successfully. If we had seen the property be listed and sell for twice the list price or, $900,000 over asking, this isn't like this is the most outrageous situation we've seen like this.
It's just the most recent. It's just the most recent one.
It's the most recent. And it's the most recent because we kind of had not a lot of newsworthy listings in 2023. So all of a sudden, to me, it feels like this is like reignited, where everyone's like, oh, we hate this. And now we're all going to jump on.
People don't feel like it should be happening in this market.
Why?
I'm just saying, that's what people say. So because the market was generally slower, it wasn't up until mid-December in my market, it was very slow. So I think the outrage is that how could this happen in this market when obviously the only way you can get multiple offers is to underprice a home. And I actually am not seeing that. I'm seeing properties where I'm like, yeah, it's an okay price. It's not, they'll probably negotiate down. They're getting 5 and 6 and 7 offers, and people are not expecting that that's going to happen right now.
Right. And so I think that, Steve, that this is that's an excellent point, because the first thing that I usually say to people when they say, well, that shouldn't happen, is I'm like, well, why? And then they say, well, in this market, okay, well, how many houses were available in that micro market in November and December that you could have gone and bought?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first one that comes out after the third rate hold at that moment, because this was a couple weeks ago. Was it last week?
It was after the rate hold. They took the offers after the rate hold.
So you have this momentum of consumer confidence returning, where you're seeing like, oh, it kind of feels like rates are going to stabilize here, and the bond rates come down, so the 5 years come down. Why not now?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is the reality, I think, of the Toronto market, which is so crazy and how resilient it is that if you study these micro markets and you see there were 0 properties like this that we could have bought in the last 90 days, that pent-up demand is going to show. And I think the question I would love to know, which we're never going to know the answer to, we can synthesize the three of us together, is, okay, let's say they came out at 999. How many offers would they have gotten?
My personal opinion on this one, I think they did better on their sale price than if they had just come out at a price. Like, that's my personal opinion. A little bit. Sure. I don't think it was crazy better. I think they got a little bit more. And the only thing I'd say is, like, it's like, okay, so typically now the thing as well, there's 84 people who walked away and didn't buy a home. So there's so much demand out there. And this is like my only other thing to kind of be on the other side of this is like, Yes, but probably 45 of those people tried to offer what the house was listed at. So yes, they exist, but those houses don't exist what they tried to buy in that area. So yes, they could go buy a condo over here, but if they want a semi-detached house in that pocket, they're not buying it with their budget. So those buyers all existed, but it was kind of for an imaginary thing. Does that make sense? Like, it's like they're out there, but what they want, there's not really a ton of to choose from. And what they want at the price they want to pay, like how many real buyers of those 85 do you think were in the zone?
I
10?
would love
I was
to
gonna say-
have seen the spread.
Yeah. So this
I wish
is
it was
where
open offers. That would have been
I was
amazing.
just gonna say that. Oh, I wish it had been open offers too.
It would have gone up. It would have gone up from its selling price if it was open offers.
You think so? Steve, talk about that.
I just think that if you see 85 registered offers on a platform like Final Offer or something, and then you start seeing one guy go up, what do they have to go up 0.5% on Final Offer, I think, of the actual sale price?
I think it is a half.
Yeah, you
0.5%
can't do
or
like a
1.5%,
cent. Yeah, you have to.
Yeah,
do
you
real,
you can't do like even $1,000 sometimes. Sometimes it's got to be a minimum of whatever the percentage is. But if you start seeing one guy do it and then two guys do it, and then let's say you got 85 offers, let's say 18 guys increase the price, or girls, and then they start doing all these, and I think it would have just gone into astronomical. Here's the thing: I think right now we're demanding open bidding, and I think in the future we are going to find just as many problems with the high prices in open bidding, and then at some point in time it will become also the issue. Because the issue isn't actually the market at all, right? The issue is never the market. Did you guys see? Oh, this is a side tangent. Sorry, Tom. Did you guys see the Argentinian president that was just elected do his speech at the World Economic Forum?
No.
Oh, well, I watched it translated by AI into English, so I hope it was correct. But he basically went off on the fact that capitalism is the best thing ever, and the market is never wrong, and I can't explain it properly. His 20-minute speech was fantastic, and his thing was, if you think the market is wrong, you're just trying to justify why you're not happy with it. And it's never wrong. It will always adjust. And and his explanation was, if something is inflated in value, it's because right now people are finding value in it, and if it deflates in value later on, that value they don't see in it anymore. And that's why the market is always right, no matter what the market is doing. And the only reason you think the market is wrong is because you don't like it. And I was like, wow, that is such a true state. I really recommend, if you can go find that. If you know Spanish, watch it in the original version. And maybe something's lost in translation. But that guy standing up in front of the World Economic Forum, who is a very socialist organization, telling them why they were so wrong, and that the open market is the best way to do it. I thought it was a fantastic speech.
That's great. Let me ask you, Steve, is that what you would go tell the 84 losing offers?
What would I tell them? I would say, thank you for your offer. I appreciate your hard work.
No. If they're complaining,
would you say,
this isn't fair.
If they're frustrated with the process, this isn't fair, would you say the market, you're just frustrated because you're not happy with the market?
In this case, let's say it's me, I'm the seller. I would say me disposing of my property does not need to be fair to you. That's what I would say. There's no reason that my personal property should be disposed of in a way that is fair to all Canadians. Makes no sense. It's my property. That's what I would say.
So for you guys as top agents, let me ask you. Sorry, I'm like taking over your podcast. Like, let me ask the question.
Go for it.
But let me ask you, because I think, listen, I was maybe a little like in jest. Steve and I just said the same thing. The seller gets to choose what happens with their property. But if you guys as top agents are representing buyers in that situation, what do you think, as a consumer listening, you want to hear from your realtor to understand the process, so that you're not one of those buyers who, if you do lose, comes back later and says, well, it's not fair, Ma. Like, how do you educate the buyers?
It's a good point, because there's a certain percentage of those offers that probably never should have offered on that property because they were never going to be in the ballpark. And if their realtors had told them that with certainty and facts, and maybe there wasn't exact comparable to look at, but like they were what, like 25% under value? Like that's kind of where. So then you make the argument, if you get included in this, I guess if you take off half the offers are still 40 in this one, so it doesn't really matter. But like you're just going to push it up even more by having more people come.
But I don't even know the numbers on this, Tom. So I'm going to say in my brain, let's use $1 million as
I think it was $799. Was it $799?
I think it was $750 and
okay. So these are the numbers I was going to use. I was going to say, okay, so let's say it's worth $1 million. I listed at $750. For all of the agents that encouraged their clients to still go ahead with an offer at $730, $720, $750, $800, when you know for sure this property is for sure a $1 million listing, and let's say it's sold for $1,050,000 or whatever it is, like the agents should be doing a better job of educating their clients of saying, listen, this is a real price or this is not a real price.
Which I think they. But do they not? When you're sitting at home and you're like, you call the client, you're like, hey, there's 44 now. Yeah. Well, no, but like there's 44 offers now. You still want to go in, and at that point, it's almost so hilarious. You're like, whatever, fine. At this point, just throw ours in because.
But what, who knows? with your subject to sale $20,000 under ask price? Like
that's the question. How many of those offers had conditions? And I actually imagine if this one was open offers, Sam, it would have been so much cleaner. Everyone would have at least said, okay, yes, there was lots of stuff. Maybe you don't like that, how low they went, but it was an open, transparent thing. And I think it was not.
No. Okay. So I got the numbers for you though. I remember, I literally remember we just had this conversation and I forgot the actual number, but again, to me, Steve, you already said this, it wasn't that staggering. They were listed at $750. They sold for $999, showing us as realtors that that's a buyer that likely doesn't have 20% down, that likely can't go over $1 million. So clearly your whole buyer pool in this situation is first-time buyers that don't have the 20%. And so you had 85 offers. So again, Tom, to your point, how many of those offers were coming in at $750? A lot, I'm going to say. I'm going to say a lot. And again, if I get this story really got picked up because it was 85 buyers, but it's not like it sold for $1 million over ask. Again, there were a lot crazier stories we had in 21 than this one. It's just the first one.
The other thing we don't know is, were there offers? So let's say it's $999,999. That's for us, we probably know that's probably a 5 or I guess 10 to 15% down buyer probably. Okay. And they likely went unconditional, I would assume, which you guys can still do. We have the buyer rescission period. But who's to say there wasn't another $50,000 on top of that with conditions for 2 weeks?
Maybe.
Right? We don't know what the next offer was, because if I had a price I was happy with, I'm taking the sure thing. At least I would in Ontario. I wouldn't be BC anymore because we have conditions no matter what. But your question, Sam, was, what do you say to your buyer? When we get into those situations where we start seeing so many offers, this is how it goes with our team. Listen, this is where we think market value is. Mm-hmm. You have to understand that we are now getting into an emotional state. Like we are now, all these other buyers also want the home. The answer to your question, what should I offer, is the most amount that you possibly can or are willing to go to without feeling bad about losing the property. Because if you say tomorrow morning, I would have gone that extra $1,000 that it sold for, you've missed the property. Now, a lot of people won't like that. A lot of people won't like that conversation. Oh, you should only buy things at market value. Yeah, good story. But the reality of it is, in the marketplace, when you're sitting there and you're looking at potentially your dream home, and so are 5 other couples with their kids out front, and everybody wants that home to be the one that is theirs, and they're going to feel bad about it for $4,000 the next day, then let's put that $4,000 on paper now. That's the answer.
We used to do this a lot, right? Because like 8 out of my 10 years doing this has been markets with multiple offers. Like pretty much we've been dealing with this always. And when it got really crazy, the conversation was like a 3-prong attack to it. So this house is obviously underlisted or a condo or whatever it was, based on the last sale that happened. But in these times, and who knows if it's going to be these times, the market was trending upwards. So the last sale's good, but it's just like the foundation of like probably the next one's going to be more because of the way that we're trending. So if you're the only offer somehow, let's go in at this price and see what they say. They probably won't take it, but they'll come back to us and we'll negotiate. If it gets to 10 offers or something between 5 and 10, this is the zone that I think this property is going to sell in. And then I'll always give them the third number, which is my final number. And I'll say, this is my, I can sleep at night. Me personally, I don't think in any world someone pays more than this unless they've already lost on seven places or they're completely uneducated about the market. That's my opinion. If you pay over that and you want to pay over that, I'm not going to stop you. That's your decision, but I'm giving you my advice up to there. And then it's like, but if it's sold for $1,000 more than that and you'd wake up being super pissed off, like Steve said, then you have to decide what you'd like to do. I can't tell you what to do. I could just guide you and give you the options. And that usually worked pretty well because at least when we lose on things, they'd be like, that's okay. We knew our plan going in and it felt okay.
Yeah. I think the two of you did a great job at explaining that. You really have to be able to set that expectation so your buyer isn't super disappointed. And honestly, $1 million for a semi in Mississauga is not an egregious number.
No, it's not.
It's not a hugely inflated, oh my gosh, they way overpaid. It's not. I mean, the average detached in Mississauga last month was 135. So you're still in the range. And I believe the last sale in that pocket was a couple months ago, but I think it was in the low 9s. So again, it's not as though I think it's a story. Tom, you always joke, everyone loves real estate. It's not life insurance. People like to talk about it. I think it's just one of those stories that kind of got picked up and went viral. And it's interesting because there were 85 buyers and we haven't heard of anything in so long. But when you kind of peel back the layers to the story, I'm kind of like, I'm not quite, unless again, to our point, if buyers are working with realtors that aren't educating them properly, then yes, they have a right to be defensive and upset and how could this happen? But if you're working with a professional that's walked you through what you have to know about that pocket and how it's behaving right now, there really isn't much of a story there, in my opinion, except for the fact that there's a lot of people that want to buy a semi for $750 in Mississauga. But I mean, if they're $750, so do I.
Yeah, I'll buy that. I'll be another one of the offers if it goes for $750. I'll buy it.
Tom, I've got something happening live right now that we can discuss. So I'm looking at the real estate numbers because I just wanted to look at, you guys were mentioning prices up, down, sales, different things. And the stats package is not yet, as of recording this, the stats package is not yet out from the Fraser Valley. But on Stats Center, as I'm refreshing the page, they're adding January numbers in. So somebody's probably typing this in right now.
Let's hear it. It's exciting.
Average sale price in the Fraser Valley last month went from $963 to $1.8 million.
Oh,
interesting.
What is that? $45,000? Is that what that is?
That's
somewhere around there. $43,000.
Well, then
Median went from $815 to $855. Crazy.
That's December to January, right?
And so I've just done a video on my channel about January's month over month. I think Sam just shit all over my video because she says she doesn't like to look at it year over year.
I did not say that.
But I'm just looking, and actually, historically, I found out that January is always the lowest amount of sales for the Fraser Valley. Always, almost every single year, except for one December.
So for Sam's hairdresser, that means prices, right?
Yeah. Okay. But this January,
she doesn't watch the Tom Storey Show.
Yeah, she probably doesn't.
This January is up 130 sales from December, and it's up 53% in number of sales since last year. So last year was one of the lows.
Yeah, well, the end of last year, the last 3 months of 2023 was pretty much nothing was going on.
That video that I did that said the market is turning around.
Yeah, people got very mad at Steve. Very mad at him for that.
It is totally true. And active listings went down.
Just a little bump in the market, Steve, okay?
So what does that mean, Steve?
Oh my goodness, we went into 20% consumption. Oh my goodness, these numbers are I feel a video coming on from my main channel.
I was just going to say, we got to get off now because Steve's got
These
to
are
go
literally,
record something out.
yeah, they're being populated right now. This is fantastic.
Pumper Steve, here we go.
Pumper.
Here we go. Sam, what are you hearing though? Like from, I don't even know if I did a good job explaining this at the beginning. Like our company has 1,400 people that have a real estate license, and a lot of them come to you and express what is going well, what is not going well, things are going on. Is the general vibe that people are talking to clients that are doing things? Are some people still like the market sucks? Like, what's the general consensus you're getting?
The general consensus from the agents that are doing business is that the phone is starting to ring and their clients are starting to ask questions.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people held on last year just in times of uncertainty. The natural reaction for consumers is to just pause, right? Wait and see. And there was a lot of uncertainty last year, a lot of movement on those rates, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of stop starts. And so the general consensus last year was most people were putting the pause button on things. And I have heard from agents that now they're starting to have the phone ring again. Questions are coming. They're getting calls. They're getting, is now the time? What should we do? What do you think about this? The consensus is that there is light.
Yeah. There's optimism, it seems like.
Correct.
Where it wasn't really there at the end of last year.
Yeah. I mean, for a city of our size, I know I'm referencing obviously the GTA, but I mean, it's just unrealistic to have that number of sales on a continual basis. There's just too many people. The population's too big. So I really do think you're going to see a lot more volume, a lot more transactions happening this year because people just like life events happen all the time. People get, over the Christmas holidays, I'm sure people got married and divorced and had babies and passed away and like life happens, right? So I do think that the consensus I'm hearing is that it's starting to get busy now.
The one thing I was hoping you can clarify for the viewers as well, because I feel I've done this on my main channel a bit, but when this will have nothing to do with your market, Steve, I'm sorry, but when the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board puts out their data and their package and their sales number, that's like 6 different zones.
Do you need insurance? The answer to that question is obviously yes, of course you do. Whether you are a tenant, landlord, or homeowner, you need to insure your property and belongings. And when I insure my investment property, personally, I choose Square One. Square One is affordable online insurance for everyone. If you apply for your Square One insurance policy using the link in the description of the show notes, listeners of the Tom Storey Show can receive $20 off right now, simply by going to squareone.ca/the Tom Storey Show. Square One is no joke. I personally use Square One for my landlord policy on my investment condo. I picked Square One because they were easier to work with than other insurance companies. And when I had an issue with my previous policy coverage in relation to my Stratas coverage, Square One was the insurance company that came up with a solution for my insurance problem at an affordable rate. Online quotes take less than 5 minutes with Square One. Get your home insurance quote today at squareone.ca/the Tom Storey Show and save $20.
It's not just the city of Toronto statistics that there is it's like Durham Region, Peel, Simcoe County, Toronto, York. I'm missing one. It's confusing.
Did you say Peel?
I don't know. Maybe I said Peel, but I think there's at least 6 zones. I've written it out before.
Yep.
I feel like we should get I know Signature does a good job, but you guys take them and give us stats that we can actually share with people. But like we talked about before, like as a consumer, a seller or buyer trying to do something, I see the averages and I see this, and it's a collection of most of the properties that sell aren't even in Toronto, in the Toronto Real Estate Board. I think actually more sell every month outside the borders of the city of Toronto than in the city of Toronto, even though it comes out. Well, maybe it's close to 50-50.
I have that right here for you, Tom.
Okay, please let me know.
Just a second, please. Is your question, how do we interpret all this information?
Yeah, because it's even to me, it's confusing sometimes. Like if you're adding in everything, it's like what's happening in Durham region has nothing to do with what's happening in a specific pocket of Toronto.
Yeah, they don't make it super easy to use. So here's the real difference is that the bulk of, and I'm not going to reference you the exact numbers, so I'm going to add them all together, which I don't want to give anyone incorrect information, but the trend is, you're going to get more semi-detached rows in the 905 or outside of the 416.
Yeah.
And then the bulk of the condo sales in the 416 are far more than the condo sales in the 905. So
Interesting.
when you're seeing that big number, that headline number, I call it, where the media reports on like, this is the number, that's everything, right? That's all home types, all areas. That's, the little 2-bedroom cottage in Simcoe County that's
Right.
like less expensive than the 2-bedroom condo you have for sale right now. It's all of that stuff mishmashed together. And so it's a good number to track because it tells you on a larger scale what's happening from a real estate perspective in our city. But again, if I'm Sam Hewit and I live here and I want to do this, that one number is not going to help me.
Yeah. And then another thing that's come out recently is that we're looking at an additional 10% speculation tax on foreign home buyers. So I'm a little confused with all this, Sam. Foreign home buyers are currently banned, but this new thing would come in 2025 where if they don't get banned again, depending on what happens, does this just add to the 20% or 25% we already had in Ontario?
No, they're saying they're going to maybe scale that back. But they're talking about adding it somewhere else. So really, the way that I read it, they're just kind of renaming some things and they're moving it around a little bit, but it's not actually saving a foreign buyer any kind of tax. It's just going to be moved in different places.
I see. Okay. So nothing will change from this.
No.
Is anyone concerned about property taxes going up? Have you heard any feedback on that from people?
No, we haven't heard much about that. I mean, historically in the 416, property taxes are quite low if you compare them to the 905 regions.
Yeah.
Like I live in Durham, property taxes there are very, very high. So I haven't heard really too much rumbling from anybody on that side of the equation. I think that, when you're looking at the investor side of things, that's typically where we're hearing a little more conversation around it. Where investors are like, is this going to impact, my ROI or my cash flow? And what do I need to know about rents? Although they have nothing to worry about because rents are up 20% in the last year. So they don't have any concerns. But definitely, from again, sort of going back to that 85 offer story, I think it's more so a news piece that gets picked up and run with because it sounds, very big. But when you look at 10% on the average yearly property tax bill, and you divide that up every month, it's going to make virtually no difference to people. But no one I have heard has said anything. Certainly, there has been a little bit more conversation around the luxury home tax and how that's going to impact that sort of market around it, right? Because always when there's like a tax on a certain number higher than that, the question is always, does that impact the appreciation level of those properties under there?
Mm-hmm.
They stop appreciating over that $3 million mark because people don't want to pay the tax. So that's really been more of a conversation than the 10% property tax.
And at some point, I would assume, this is a total guess, in our 3 lifetimes, the average sale price of Toronto will get to $3 million. I'm not saying I want that. I'm not saying that's good for anybody. I'm just saying, like, you look at the core fundamentals of everything and one day it will happen. Right. But it's so far away, right? It's way far away from us right now. So it doesn't matter. It's just a big number. But then we get there one day and then the average home price, like with land transfer, right? When land transfer came out in Toronto with the double, I think the average home price was like 400, 500 grand in 2008. Well, now it's $1.2 million. And the chat I had this morning with the people wanting to buy a place. I'm like, have you guys run the number on land transfer? Because they're not first time home buyers anymore. It was going to be like $55,000.
And we have evidence of that same thing. So in the 80s, I don't know, I was too young. Bill Vanderzam here brought in, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the transfer tax. And they were, don't worry, guys, it's only 1% unless your home is worth over $200,000. And then we're going to tax those rich people 2%. And then now it's over 2 million. It's 3%. Over 3 million, it's 5%. And it goes up and up and up. But eventually, everybody becomes like the average condo at some point is going to be a mansion tax.
Mhm.
It's going to have it apply. You guys
Is that what it's called?
Not officially,
I mean,
maybe.
not
but that's just
officially.
what they call it.
It's the easy way to get it passed, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The luxury home tax. When does
Yeah.
that? So, and another example of that here in the other direction is, so we don't get an exemption on our first 500 grand. So if the property's over 500 grand, there's a sliding scale from 5 to 5.25. But if you're over 5.25, you get no exemption on your first time home buyer. The last time they updated that was 2017.
Yeah. How many properties are you selling under that price point?
A few.
Not that many, a few,
but
right?
it's now in my market, that is, if you're lucky, a very nice 1-bedroom. But let's
Sam?
look at average sale price. Hold on, since 2017. Oh, are they not going to bring it up? Here we go. Average sale price since 2017, when they changed that, was January 2017 was 624.
And what is it today?
And you just said it's $1.010 million.
It's $1.8 million. Yeah.
$1.8 million.
My goodness.
And we haven't increased that. So our first time buyer exemption should be like $850 now. Right? Crazy.
Write a letter, Steve. Get involved. Tell people. Tell
Ravi won't
people.
respond to me anymore.
Create some change. We know the housing minister. Ravi's our guy.
Ravi does. I don't think Ravi wants to come back on because he knows I'm going to ask that question.
Sam, outside real estate for a second, you are putting on a conference on March 6th. I was wondering if you could share a little bit about that. I will support everything you ever do in your entire life, and I think everyone should be going to this. So can you just explain what's going on? Because I think it's awesome.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate that. Yeah, for sure. I get the good pleasure, as you said earlier, I oversee our sales team here. And in real estate, maybe consumers don't always know this, but real estate is a really lonely business because although you're surrounded by your clients every day, you really are kind of working by yourself. And so I have lots of conversations with men and women. This isn't just a women conversation, but I have a lot of conversations with women where they come in and they'll say, like, can I talk to you? And I'm like, sure. And they'll say, this isn't like really like a work thing. Okay. And they'll say, I just don't know if I can use video because I don't feel like I look good enough. Or, I'm having trouble taking on more buyers because I've got to pick my kids up from school and, then my husband gets home late or my partner gets home late and like I can't really do the juggle. Or I feel guilty when I'm at work or I feel guilty when I'm at home because I feel like I should be doing more in either of those environments. And the conversation around being an entrepreneur, I think in the uniquely female space, there's a lot kind of wrapped up into the guilt and the not feeling good enough and not feeling worthy. And in all of the conferences that I go to, you always pick up one nugget, one little thing that you can take from it. But as a woman, sometimes it feels like there's like this missing conversation from the space. And when women come in to talk to me and they say like, this is how I'm feeling, is it just me? I'm like, oh, it's every woman I talk to is saying the same thing. And so the conference really is just a way, an environment, a venue to bring that dialogue out into a bigger forum and allow people the space to be able to really talk about it from the stage. Our keynote speaker is Joanna Griffiths from NYX, the apparel company. She's a Toronto woman, has 2 young children, sold the company last year for $320 million. So she's going to talk about how she built her business being a mom and the fact that, a lot of these companies that were offering her financing for her business questioned her ability to be a mother and build a business and be a woman as a CEO and how she was going to lead her team. And maybe she should hire a president to help her. And, really just this whole understanding of like what it's like being a woman in this space. So we're really, really excited. It's my first event, so I'm a little nervous. It's my first one. I do a lot, obviously, of our corporate events. That's my main function here, but I've never hosted my own. And so we're going to talk about the conference is called Becoming Her. And it really is just this idea of like, it's all of these pieces of your life that make up who you are. It's not one thing. It's not just being in business or being a mom or being a leader or being an entrepreneur or how to manage your money, or your health, wellness, or your mindset. It's like all of these things that come together. So March 6th here in Toronto, early bird tickets are on sale until February 14th for $199. The website is becomingherto.com.
Awesome. We will put all the information below as well.
Can I would love to support you in that. Unfortunately, I am in out of town. But let me tell you.
Well, if you're not flying here, Steve, I'm disappointed.
Right? From absolutely everything I've seen you do for Tom and the events that he's put on over the years, he will be there setting up chairs, helping you set up the room, AV equipment. If you need anything at all, Tom Storey is there for you.
Well, all the women on my team are going, and I've been yelling at everybody else I know to buy tickets, and I think it's going to be awesome. So,
Thank you.
If you send them to me, links down below in the description of the show.
Yeah, we'll put all the information there.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks for the support.
Yeah, of course, always. Okay, let's wrap it up with just a general. How are we all feeling about life? Or is things good? Let's go outside real estate here for the last few minutes. Like, are we feeling good about 2024 for ourselves? Is it a year of excitement? Are we happy 2023 is like get the hell out of here? Or were you happy with last year? Like, I feel like everyone's going through different things. It'd be interesting to see in the comments as well what people say. Sam, you want to start?
Yeah, I never begrudge a year. I've had definitely I've had an uphill last few years for sure. But I will never begrudge a year because I think you can always take so much from it. And I'm super fortunate. I lead a super fortunate life. I'm very lucky. I have great people around me, great support like you guys. So I'm not unhappy to see 2023 go. But I definitely think 2024 is going to be a better year for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what this year brings. And I can't believe we're already 1 month through. Like,
it's crazy.
That was the longest January, I think, on record on planet Earth with 0 Sundays. So I'm really excited for warm weather in the spring and everything 2024 has to bring.
I made it through all of January without having any drinks. I'm not much of a drinker anyways, but I did my dry January and I felt good. I did have a beer at the end of the conference yesterday because it was we were into February. But you know what? I did it. I did my thing. I did what I said I was going to do.
Good for you. Congratulations. Yeah. I'm actually doing dry February.
Oh, nice.
It's shorter in January.
Well, there's an extra day this year.
It's a leap year. You messed up. Up.
I did, but I couldn't get through January with no sun without, the occasional little bottle of stag leaf. So
yeah,
February is here. I'm in it.
And Steve, what about
you guys?
As of the release of this episode, I am currently on a plane to take my kids for the first time ever on a plane to Disneyland. And we are going to check it out. So yeah, right. We're doing it. So that's cool. I
Steve,
apologize
next
in
episode,
advance.
I want you to go over exactly the entire expenses of the trip. And then you have to quantify if it was worth it for the experiences of your children.
Funny
it could be $7 million. It doesn't matter.
That's what I feel, but he doesn't feel that way.
It does not matter, Steve.
Definitely not $7 million. The unfortunate part is, and this is lifting the I will not be able to give you an update on the next episode because the next episode we're shooting like the day before I take off because otherwise we wouldn't have a next episode.
Okay.
So we are pre-recording that one. And we are bringing in our first ever guest from the beautiful and wonderful city of Winnipeg. So that'll be fun.
Who is it?
Anders. Do you know Anders?
Yeah.
No?
He's with Remax over there. He's a great guy. I think he'll be an awesome episode.
Fun.
I hope he remembers to show up. We've had issues with that lately. No, but that's the gig. We're going to go check that out. I have priced out the cost of corn dogs because I will be having one per day and going completely off of my diet.
Well, Steve, I hope you have fun, and I hope your
$10.95 American is the answer
for a corn dog.
For one corn dog. So I will be buying. Yeah. I'll be in the park 5 days. I will be buying at least one per day for me, and then we'll see if my kids like them.
You have a great time.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Haunted house is closed.
Oh.
One of the best ones.
I've never been to land. I've only been to world. So we're thinking about it. We're thinking about it. But Steve's going to yell at me. My child can't go till he's 10. He's got to have this much money in the bank and a high interest savings account.
Well, if you guys are already down there visiting, like you might as well just pop.
It's a bit of a drive. We'll see what we're going to do.
Yeah, no. It's not a pop over. No, don't listen to Steve. When I've done both.
Great advice.
I have
Full stop.
Popped over, and I have stayed on property, and I can definitely tell you there are pros and cons, but you don't pop over. It's like to get from the gate to a ride, it's 9 hours. Like it's a half a day.
We had a Zoom call with someone to explain to us how the heck to use the app now, because apparently you also have to bring a battery charger for your phone because it's such a interesting. It's going to be an experience.
You guys should do a whole episode on Disney and how it relates to the business world. It is a fascinating case study.
That would be interesting.
And Tom, what are you looking forward to in 2024?
Just running my business a bit more smoothly. We just brought on a new agent. Really just like going back to what I said at the very beginning, I really believe that if you're passionate about what you do and you care about people, I'm obsessed with marketing and I want to find ways to get in front of more people to help them do things. And that's just always been what we do. And I got a hot tub at my cottage and I just want to spend more time there. So that's the truth. That's what my goals are. Have a hot tub. Thank you, Sam, so much for coming. Like I said, this was overdue. This was an awesome conversation. Steve, any final words of wisdom for our viewership?
No, I wish Sam was here more often than you. So
yeah, fair. That's fair.
Steve, if you need a co-host, I co-host my own podcast. Sometimes my co-host, I'm like, I need a new co-host for a little bit. So if you need a new co-host, you know where to find me, okay?
Well, if Tom keeps booking all those vacations, one day we might need it.
Track me down if you need.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you for watching, listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Love you. Bye.